We're going to start a discussion of the oil system because we have a two-part oil system. We have the low-pressure lubrication side. So it's important to change the oil before or at the recommended intervals and to make sure you use the correct viscosity. It's going to be important to use it to activate the injectors. If you do these extended oil changes, you can have a negative effect on engine performance, injector life, and even engine life. And mileage is not the only way of judging when an oil change is required. If you have a vehicle that spends significant time at low speeds or idling, you may want to use engine hours. Our recommendation is 225 hours between oil changes. We'll discuss this more later on. But remember, this lubrication system oil is the same oil we're going to use for the high-pressure fuel injectors. So they share this in common. Do not overfill the engine oil. It can cause foaming and multiple problems. But it's bigger than that. Fuel, if it leaks out of the O-rings in the injectors, will overfill the crankcase. And if that happens, we can have real problems. This is an example. This crankcase is overfilled. Ford recommends waiting at least 20 minutes before checking the oil level. If you see one significantly overfilled like this, you may want to check any of your injectors to see if they're leaking. We've talked about that. You can put dye into the system and see if the injectors are leaking by putting a UV dye into the secondary fuel filter and then using a UV light to inspect the injectors. Having fresh oil with good anti-foaming agents is really important. If you want to get a sample of the oil, sample it at the engine oil pressure or the engine temperature sensors to pull it out and get this sample. Check for white or foamy oil and correct any issues that allow oil and water to mix, because this is what's running our injectors as well as our engine. It's bad enough if we had white, milky oil in an engine. This is doubly bad because we got it in the engine and in the high pressure system. Just a kind of a special note, the oil pressure gauge isn't really a true gauge. It's more of a idiot lamp or warning lamp. 7 psi puts the gauge at normal. 6 shows no pressure. So the dividing line is between 6 and 7 psi. It's either good or it's bad. Let's take a minute to go over some of the oil change sequence. You're going to remove the filter obviously first. This opens the oil filter housing with a drain valve in the bottom and allows the oil to drain into the oil pan. Special note, if the drain valve is stuck open or broken in any way, the filter housing won't have any oil in it. That means it's going to be a dry startup. That's not good. The filter should have oil in it to avoid this dry start. Now, here is one thing you need to know about. We've seen some failures on. This is a relief valve in the top. If the engine overheats, make sure that the relief valve in the top still works. Push it down, make sure it moves freely and doesn't stick. If this is stuck closed, we will not bypass if the oil filter gets dirty. So it's very important to keep this free. At the bottom, we have a drain. We're going to talk about the drain. We mentioned it earlier. If we don't have a filter that's right length, the drain is going to remain open like the bottom picture down here, and the drain should be closed like in the other two pictures. So some filters are taller than others. Now, it's very simple. The one on the left has a cap attached to it. The one on the right doesn't. So it's pretty easy. Here's the oil drain. If you got the wrong filter in, it won't push the drain down, which releases this. If it's stuck open like this, you're going to have a dry oil filter at the start and take a long time to get oil, which is not good for the vehicle. It's particularly not good for the oil pumps. The E-Series does not have this drain plug because of the mounting of the oil filter. It's mounted upside down, so it's not a problem. On the E-Series, as you can see here, you just take it off. You don't need an oil drain. So in a normal situation, we remove this cover, take the filter out and let it drain, and we go through it making sure that the bottom drain is sealed properly and make sure that the relief works, and we've completed our oil change. Now let's move on to the high pressure side of the oil.